Most developers overcomplicate starting new projects. I use this three-step implementation: think, map, ship. Today, we're going to be building a full-stack app, a replica of the New York Times game Connection. And by the end, I'll show you how I effectively use Claude Code to get consistent results. Let's go. Let's quickly overview these three phases. First one, think, document your detailed requirements with an LLM before touching code. Essentially, I just yap to Claude Code, say what I want to build from a high level, ask it to give me more thorough details, identify blind spots, ideas, really just get down as much details as possible about my project. Then once we have that plan, we're going to map it out into phases. If we have this entire huge full stack app, it could one-shot it, but if you really want to get, more medium and large projects, you got to break it down into phases. That way you're going to get more consistent results. You can actually QA things without building, this huge broken app, then having to fix it later. So by just building out into, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, you can have 5 to 10 or however many phases you want for the project, and then iterate each phase one by one in the ship step. That way we can actually QA ourselves before advancing to the next one. Now, I know there are more complicated workflows out there that have you setting up parallel agents and stuff like that. I found that just too much for kind of the smallish medium projects I'm building these days. Oftentimes I just get confused or lost with those. So here's my just simple, smooth process for building projects. So quickly go over what we're going to be building. This is Connections. If you haven't seen it, you have 16 words. And then you got to kind of find out the 4 categories they all fit into. So relatively simple, but there's some game logic here. So let's hop into our IDE. I'll go to cursor. We have Claude Code open here on the right in the extension. This is just a completely empty folder other than the folders we're going to fill out, which is features, implementation phases, and an empty product requirements document, PRD. So back to our think step, we're going to document our requirements with an LLM. That's exactly what we're going to do. I don't really use Claude Code plan mode. I like to have it kind of spit out a document. So I'm just going to talk very high level my requirements. I use Talktastic to do voice to text, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like. I want to build a replica of the New York Times game Connections, where you're given 16 words and have to guess 4 words at a time to form 4 groups, and you're allowed 4 strikes before game over. I want this to be a Next.js application using shad CN components and TypeScript. For the first iteration of this app, let's just worry about playing a hard-coded puzzle locally without saving the results. But eventually down the line, I want to be able to add authentication and the saving of games played, both using Supabase. And I want users to be able to play puzzles of previous days. Don't implement the code just yet. Put the product requirement documents of this app in the prd.md file. Be very specific. Ultra think. So that was about a minute of yapping. I'm just going to give it to Claude Code. Notice I said don't implement it yet. Put it in this product requirements doc folder, just that way so I can edit it. If it missed anything, I can change things. If I don't like the technology it's going to build. I was a little specific on the technology I wanted to use, like Next.js and using Supabase for the back end. Though if you're not a very experienced coder, this is your first project, you can just say, recommend me a tech stack to use, and it'll figure that out for you. Though I gave it some slight guardrails, so let's see what it cooks up. I also used UltraThink at the end to make sure when it's on the Opus model, it spends extra time and more detailed. Okay, and after about 2 minutes, it gives us our PRD here. We can see on the left. On Mac, you can click Shift-Command-V. If it's a markdown, to see it in the markdown preview. Makes it a little more editable and viewable. Summary has the game, tech stack here. Yeah, this is a pretty good job for knowing the game rules off our think phase. So now let's go into our map phase, where we want to actually break this down into implementable phases. Not only will it make it more QAable, but again, if we have these phases too big, you're going to waste credits making code that doesn't work, and you get a lot more effective results. So I'll go back to Claude Code here. I'll just type this out so I can tag the PRD document. Then I'll go to text to speech, or speech to text rather, and say, build me 5 phases that I can implement sequentially for this connections replica game. The first one, we should have a simple Next.js app running with our shadcn style, just so we can make sure all the pipes are working. Then in phase 2, let's get a simple playable game working. Then in phase 2, let's get a simple playable game working with a hard-coded game state for the puzzle and a success and replay feature. Then in phase 3, let's implement authentication, just so users can sign in, nothing to do with the game state. Then in phase 4, let's record the history of all games played for a user. Then in phase 5, let's make sure that users can replay the puzzle of the day from previous days. So there's me breaking it down into phases. Another folder we have here is a features folder, which I'll include in this prompt. I use this folder just to keep track of all the individual features of our application. That way, when we add on to it or change the requirements, it gives Claude Code more specific context when it's building it. So it doesn't have to refer back to the large PRD every time and find the feature. We can just have more organized feature documentation. So in here, you can imagine we could have, authentication, game rules, managing previous puzzles, stuff like that. So I'll add that on to this prompt. For each major feature of this app, such as authentication, the specific game rules, the user experience when playing the game, viewing previous days' puzzles, how we store it all in the database, give each feature a specific markdown folder in the features folder. That way, we have more specific context when editing or enhancing certain features. We'll hand that off to Claude Code and see what it builds. All right, great. Now that that's done, we can see we have our 5 phases here. You can open these in preview modes, like for phase 1, basically just to set up the app with TypeScript, Next.js, Tailwind, standard things I like for styling. Phase 2 for the card game, actual implementation, the rules and such, and so forth. And we have some features here for auth, mechanics, persistence, puzzle management, and UX. Great. So let's go ahead with phase 1 just to demo how I do it. So honestly, I can clear this Claude Code conversation history. We have everything documented. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask it, implement phase 1 of this project using the phase 1 documentation attached. Use the latest libraries of all tech included. Once that's done, just actually tag the doc I want, phase 1, and let it go. And once that wraps up, we can see we have our vanilla Next.js application here with a little bit of placeholding just for foreshadowing that the real stuff's coming in phase 2. If we go to the README, which we didn't request, and it made it for us, it gave us some startup instructions. So I know it's the Next.js application. npm run dev is how we can see the app running locally. In our terminal down here, 3000, open this up. Cool. We have our blank Next.js pretty much play the game coming in phase 2. I can tell this is shadcn components. Awesome. Now let's move on to phase 2. So let's go back to Claude Code here. Again, speech to text, open it up and say, all right, phase 1 is done. I've QA'd it. Now please move on to phase 2, the actual implementation of the game logic. You can mark the phase 1 document as complete and mark the phase 2 document as in progress at the top. And I say those things for marking the documents just so if the model ever looks back at it, it says, hey, phase 1 is done. I don't need to worry about this. It's also just a good way to log what you've done, keep track of your logs and how they're finished off. You know, if I worked on this project, took a month off, came back to it, I can know what's been implemented, what's still left to do. You know, you could even have a done phases, to-do phases, in progress phases type structure, though I just tend to keep it simple like this. So let's send off this message after I tagged the phase 2 document in here, just so it knows what to do. And we'll come back and hopefully have a working connections. And again, after just a few minutes, says phase 2 successful, gives us the features, pretty much just all our local single player game state. So let's go back to localhost and all right, awesome. I am used to like a home screen with like a play button for connections, but right into the game works as well. I admit I did fire this up just so it wasn't completely trash before demoing it. I think the first category is fish. Yeah, click submit. All right, we get that category. Honestly, I haven't played the rest of them. We'll do it live. Looks like we have units of measurements. Yep. All right. And these have nice color-coded categories. Again, something we didn't say, but that it could get on its own. And then this one's kind of tough. I'm seeing like palindromes. Yep. Bang. Let's see if there's an end game state. Awesome. Yeah, perfect. Let's see how it handles the strike. Yep. So like another functionality we could add would be, you know, you can't guess the same combination twice. Maybe like a modal when you get a strike, stuff like that. Also like the shareable text with the emojis of the colored squares would be nice. But you can see this is a nice phase by phase implementation. You know, probably could have gotten phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time, as phase 1 was just a setup step. But to get all these phases, you know, phase 1 through 5 might be tough. So I hope this tutorial was helpful for you guys. We built a full stack app using our think, map, ship methodology. Let me know how you guys apply this in your own applications. Let me know if you want to see us extend this application, actually build out all the 5 phases. That'd be helpful for you. In our next video, we'll be going over how we actually deal with bugs in Claude Code, how I add on the features for repos that are already built, and some of my tips and tricks there. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next video. Like something if you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one.